These are the notes about gas behavior. You should follow along and record your notes on the handout that was provided to you. You may pause the video at any time if you need to slow down to write stuff down, but make sure that you listen to the entire video, as there might be things that I say that aren't recorded on the paper. When we learned about the states of matter, we looked at some of the properties of the different states, and when we talked about gases, we mentioned a few things about them that will be important to understanding how gases behave. So one of the things that we mentioned about gases is that it has an indefinite volume. So what that means is that gas is able to change its volume. So by spreading molecules out or pushing them closer together, we can make something have a smaller or a larger volume. So gas has an indefinite volume, and the volume can change by the gas being compressed or spread out, which means the molecules are closer or further away. When a gas is being compressed or expanded, an important thing to note is you're not changing how much of the gas you have. And the way that we measure how much of something you have is mass. So as the volume of a gas is changing, the mass is still the same. Now, when we measure volume, we're looking at how much space something takes up in three-dimensional space. So volume is just the amount of space something occupies. And when we're talking about a gas, it tends to fill up whatever the available space is, so whatever the size of the container. And we can measure volume in units. Gases are fluids, just like liquids, so we would tend to measure them with units like milliliters or liters. But we can also use our other unit of volume, centimeters cubed or meters cubed, or even if we weren't in science class and we wanted to use the imperial system, we could talk about like inches cubed or something like that. So it's either a cubic measurement of length or a unit that already measures volume used for fluids. One of the other things that we learned that we can measure about matter way back in the beginning of the year is temperature. And when we talked about temperature, we defined it as just how much or how fast the molecules are moving, their amount of thermal energy. So a more technical definition of temperature, it's the average speed or motion of the molecules. And that will become important later on in the year, where when we talk about the number of molecules compared to the average speed, the total amount of heat can be different than temperature, because heat measures total energy, whereas temperature is average energy. So we can measure something about how fast the molecules are moving when we measure temperature. And the units that we use in science class are degrees Celsius, or degrees C. We could use other scales like Fahrenheit or another scale called Kelvin, but in science class, at least this science class, we're going to stick to Celsius. And the way we can think about temperature as it relates to matter, we can think about our example of a solid, a liquid, and a gas, using water as an example. So if we have solid ice, liquid water, and water vapor, in the solid, the molecules are stuck in place, so they are not moving, they are only vibrating. And then when we add enough energy, then those can break apart. And so in a liquid, the molecules start to move, but are still moving relatively slowly and are still joined together. And then in a gas, the molecules break free and can continue to move faster and faster. So that would be in water, that would be water vapor is what we call the gas form of this. So everything that we're talking about gas, there's many different examples of different substances that exist in a gas. We can think about this as water vapor. We can think about it simply just being the air around us, because that's a combination of different gases. We could think about it as something like carbon dioxide or oxygen gas, both of which exist as a gas at room temperature because it is above the boiling point of those substances at room temperature. Now, the one thing that we have not talked about yet that we can measure about gases is we can measure their pressure. Pressure is unique to the other states of matter. We can't really measure pressure of a solid or a liquid because they don't tend to have liquids we could have pressure as well. But typically when we're talking about pressure, we're talking about a gas. And pressure, we are measuring how much force is pushing, force is just something pushing, on a given area. So the key thing here is it's not just the amount of force, and it's not just the area, which is two-dimensional space, as opposed to volume, which was three-dimensional space. We have a certain amount of force which is pushing on a certain area. So kind of like density was the amount of mass in a certain volume, pressure is force in a certain area. So our equation for pressure is pressure, which we can abbreviate with P, equals force, with F, divided by A for area. So kind of like density was mass divided by volume, we have pressure as force divided by area. So if we spread out the space that we're pushing on, we make that area bigger, pressure would go down. If we make the force go down, pressure would go down. If we make the force go up, pressure would go up. So that relationship between how force relates to pressure and how area relates to pressure is similar to what we saw with density and mass and volume. Now the units that we're going to use for pressure are a unit called kilopascals. These were invented by a guy called Pascal. Scientists tend to name things after themselves. The way we can abbreviate that is KPA, the lowercase k and an uppercase p and a lowercase a. That's the unit that we'll use for pressure in science, just like we use degrees Celsius for temperature and milliliters or centimeters cubed for volume. We'll use kilopascals for pressure. There are other units for pressure, just like there are other units for temperature and other units for volume. So one unit of pressure that you may have seen in your everyday life is a unit called PSI, or pounds per square inch. If you've ever pumped up a basketball or bike tire and used a pump that had a gauge on it, it most likely had the units in PSI, because that's the unit that we use here in the United States for pressure. So that's just another unit, just like degrees Fahrenheit is another unit for temperature. So some examples of pressure that you see in your everyday life that you might be familiar with. The reason why a tire or a ball stays inflated and doesn't collapse when you push on it is that it has pressure inside of it pushing out. So we have air pressure there in a tire or a ball. And there's actually pressure pushing on you at all times. When we get to our atmosphere unit in the spring, we'll learn more about air pressure. But there's air pressure in the atmosphere caused by gravity pulling down on the air. And that can change with different weather patterns. So one of the things when we talk about weather, we'll talk about pressure and a barometer measuring pressure, and how as that drops or rises, that can tell us something about the weather. So the amount of air just pushing on you on a day-to-day basis, there's always some of it, and that can vary slightly depending on the weather. So now we can learn how these three different things, pressure, temperature, and volume, are related to each other in gases, because all of them influence each other in different ways. So our first relationship is the relationship between pressure and volume, and this is described by Boyle's law. And Boyle's law says that when volume decreases, so if you have a gas and you compress it, then the pressure will increase. and vice versa. When volume increases, then pressure decreases. And this relationship can actually go the other way. If you change pressure, if you increase the pressure on a gas, then that will cause the volume to change. However, with this law, we most often see it in this form that the volume is changing, causing the pressure to change. So one example of this in action is a bicycle pump. If you've ever used a bicycle pump, you take the handle here, you pull it up, and then you push it back down. When you are pushing the handle back down, when you push down on the bike pump, you are decreasing the volume of air inside that bike pump. You're pushing it down, you're making it smaller, and you're compressing the gas. So when you push down, the volume is getting smaller, and that makes the pressure go up. So the volume decreases, so pressure increases. And that allows you to build up pressure in your pump, which you can then put that pressure into a tire or a ball or whatever it is that you need to inflate. So that higher pressure can go into a ball or a tire and give them a higher amount of pressure that allows them to stay inflated. So that's Boyle's law, describes the relationship of pressure and volume. There's another law that describes the relationship between pressure and temperature. Your book didn't give you the name for this, so we're not going to worry about the name for it, so we'll just call it the unnamed law. And this relationship says that when temperature increases, so when you heat up a gas, which means the molecules are moving faster, then the pressure will increase. And vice versa. When temperature decreases, then pressure will decrease. So this is known as a direct relationship, that when one thing changes, the other one changes in the same way. Compared to Boyle's law, where they changed in an opposite way, that was known as an inverse relationship. So this can be temperature changing pressure. It can also be pressure changing temperature. Now, one key thing about all of these laws is that they're assuming that the other quantity is kept the same. So Boyle's law is the relationship between pressure and temperature when pressure and volume when temperature is constant or doesn't change. So this relationship is assuming temperature is the same. And pressure and temperature, we're assuming now that volume is the same. So all of these laws are assuming that the third thing is not changing. So if we actually increase the pressure, if we did something to increase the pressure and we kept volume the same, that would force temperature to increase. So one example that we can think about this, if you remember the Deflategate thing from a few years ago, that was an example of temperature having an influence on pressure. It's up for some debate whether that had as much influence to actually cause the pressure to drop as much as it did. But we can test out if you've ever left a ball outside in the winter time, and you'll notice that when you go out after it's been out in the cold for a few days, it will look deflated. So when you store a ball in the cold, the pressure decreases. The reason for this law has to do with what pressure and temperature really are. Temperature is the speed of the molecules, how fast they're moving, and pressure is how much they're pushing on something. If they're moving faster, they're going to push harder on stuff. So the molecules of the gas inside the basketball here, they're zooming around, bouncing back and forth. If they slow down, they're not moving as fast, they're not pushing out on the sides of the basketball as much, and the pressure decreases and the ball is able to deflate.